You can now support Dubious Consumption on Patreon. Hey guys, Justin here from Dubious Consumption. Today we're going to be watching Mulholland Drive for my first 500 subscribers. Just so you guys know, I have never actually seen the full movie before. I've watched plenty of video essays on it. I have seen up to the diner scene where the guy comes out from behind the wall, but kind of turned me off at that point. For my kind of bona fides where it comes to David Lynch, Dune is my favorite. I like Lost Highway, though it's been years since I've seen it, and I'm actually a fan of Blue Velvet. I've tried watching Inland Empire like 4 times and just cannot get into it. It actively makes me angry. Kind of so does his music career. So I'm going into this relatively fresh. I know a bit about it. I know some of the interpretations, but we'll see how it goes.
Alright, so this is Nathan Steinman with the Dubious Consumption and hopefully other things as we go along. We are going to be watching Mulholland Drive. I have seen Mulholland Drive 3 times. I did not see it in theaters when it came out, but I did see Inland Empire in theaters. I have seen most of David Lynch's material. I think there's only a few short films that I haven't seen. I've been a David Lynch fan for going on something like 18 years. I saw Dune as a kid, but I didn't know that was a David Lynch film until much later. I really got into him as a teenager. One of my favorite films of all time is probably Blue Velvet. I have been an avid fan of Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me and Lost Highway, even when they were not necessarily the most critically acclaimed of his films. I have a little bit more of a fanboy approach to David Lynch, definitely, than Justin does. So we shall see how the discussion goes after the film. And we will see you after. So, Justin, this is a David Lynch film you have not seen.
Yeah, of the few I have seen.
Yeah. So, what are your general feelings first? Let's start there.
The first half, or the first 2/3 is pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
There's a lot of weird asides, some weird characters, but generally is just you can follow the story with no real issues.
Yeah.
You know, what's her? Rita gets into a car accident. Looks like she's about to be killed or something. It gets into a car accident because of some crazy kids. And then escapes, passes out, has amnesia, and ends up hiding in a house.
A very Hitchcockian kind of story.
Right.
Really like even the money in the bag and the key.
Well, that, and also she takes her name from Rita Hayworth. You know, it's
the kind of classic Hollywood stuff that
yeah,
is kind of famous for homaging in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it's building back to all of that. Obviously, a relationship between Naomi Watts ends up finding her, thinking that it's her aunt's friend, eventually realizing that it's not, and then getting embroiled in a little mystery, trying to figure out who she is.
That goes deeper and deeper and deeper the farther we go.
Yeah, but not that they know.
Yeah.
There's all this extra interplay stuff about, you know, mobsters or secret societies controlling Hollywood and who becomes rich and famous and who doesn't, and if you don't play by their rules, they destroy you.
And Adam's failure to control
his movie and giving in to them.
Having to give in to them in order to continue making movies.
Or maybe even stay alive.
Yeah.
So
we don't really know.
Cowboy very much hints that, hey,
you see me twice, you're fucked.
Yeah. So
what's funny is in the movie, you see him twice. Two more times.
Wake up, pretty girl, and then him walking out.
Yeah.
So, but it's not Adam who gets fucked. It's Diane.
Which Betty transforms into Diane.
It's another one like Lost Highway where personalities switch, but it seems more like in this one that Diane is fantasizing about another life.
Like, completely. I feel like this is if there was ever a movie that was like, I'm trying to think of like Memento, where it recontextualizes itself as you go along. This is a movie where one chunk is very kind of clear.
Right.
And then the other chunk completely changes everything you just saw.
Right.
And totally recontextualizes the film.
Well, it's weird because Rita pretty much subsumes Betty's personality. Like she integrates it into herself, and as soon as they're done at the theater with the illusion, when she comes home, Betty disappears.
Yeah. And then when
she looks just like Betty.
Yep.
And
I think that's the point of that shot where they're in bed together.
Yeah.
And you see, you know, her face is overlapping Betty's face. It's like at that point is they've become one in a way.
Right. And then she opens the box and suddenly she's in Betty's, basically she's what Betty was in the first half, or would have been.
Yeah. The thing is so from the beginning, you get the sense there's something off.
Well, I mean, that's just kind of a Lynchian vibe.
I know, but like, even just even like the Welcome to Los Angeles side, there's just something kind of off about it. Because it's a banner, and it looks kind of tacky, and like it doesn't seem like you see all the architecture and stuff, it doesn't match. Like it doesn't fit what you would expect there to be as far as like a sign that would say Welcome to Los Angeles. You almost expect it to be more ostentatious or more interesting, you know, in some way.
Well, it's also weird because it almost feels like it's stuck in a different time period. I don't know what time period that is.
There's a bunch of different time periods at once.
But it's not early 2000s.
Yeah, it's definitely, I would say, late 80s, early 90s almost. But there's bits of the 50s, 60s, and 70s that are also like scattered throughout the movie. Like,
well, the music,
Yeah.
the singing thing where he's auditioning people.
yeah, super 50s,
Yeah,
early 60s stuff.
doo-wop, or not necessarily doo-wop, but that sort of era.
Yeah, the
And Diane comes out, and she's obviously like the nagging housewife, like wringing her hand, like she even has a little
yeah.
thing there that's worrying over everything that their significant other is doing and jealous.
Well, and like the thing that's interesting to me about the movie is the fact that every time I watch most of Lynch's movies, just in general, you come away with a little bit different, like, kind of feel. And you almost get more of a feel of Adam is as much a part of the Betty character.
Right.
Like, Adam, Betty, and Rita are all surrogates for Diane in the film, because the failure, the betrayal, the obvious betrayal,
Right.
Getting covered in the paint, having to like play along to get,
To get where you need to be.
to get where you need to be, to do the things you want to do. It's all, like, I was like, oh, his story feels even more a part of like the symbolic part of the narrative. And I know that what is the first 2/3, not completely, there's some footage and stuff that like you can tell was like very clearly added into those segments to make it match more what the end looks like.
Right.
But you can really tell like this was made for TV at first.
Yeah, parts of it. Yeah.
It's like you can really see the kind of influence of like, you didn't have these cameras, you didn't have this film stock, and you didn't have, even if you were working with the same people, because that's kind of Lynch's thing, is almost all of the crew go back, even sometimes, like Jack Fisk has worked on every David Lynch project, except for, I think, maybe the new Twin Peaks season.
Right.
And he's, this is the last film with Mary Sweeney involved. She edited a couple of his movies, produced him, they were married, but this movie is the last of their marriage, kind of. In a couple years their marriage is over and they're separated. And she clearly she didn't work on Inland Empire at all.
Inland Empire.
The thing that's interesting to me is like, I think I already said that in this discussion.
That you're learning more.
Yeah, it's not even so much that you're learning more, it's that you can read
More into
the characters,
Right.
like, in different ways. Like, that's the first time that Adam ever occurred to me. It's like, oh, it's also the story at the end, because she was betrayed by Camilla.
Right.
But she's also the monster, saying this is the girl. But in the dream, the hitman sucks at his job and kills other people, which was it's still one of the funniest things in the whole movie.
Right.
The inept hitman.
Well, and it, obviously the ending heavily applies that Camilla's dead, and then
And probably Adam.
yeah,
I think Adam is the unforeseen consequence.
yeah. Well, I'm sure that it was that whole, if you recontextualize the hitman sucking at his job, killing 3 people to kill 1.
Yeah.
That he probably took out the whoever the Camilla variant is in there. Took her out, took out Camilla, and took out Adam.
Yeah, not even meaning to kill all 3 of them.
Right.
Only meaning to kill Camilla,
Right.
but in the process.
Taking out everything, which then haunts Diane.
Yeah. Because it wasn't just Camilla who died.
Right.
And it could have been Coco that got killed, and not. Because you have the overweight lady next door,
Right.
who's older. It could be Camilla or Coco who gets killed. along with and maybe not the Camilla character from the Dream TV movie portion.
Right.
But that's also the other thing that I think is interesting is, like, if you take it as dreaming your life as a TV movie, a movie of the week kind of thing.
Right. Well, that's definitely Betty at the very beginning. It's almost like Pleasantville levels of cheery and
happy and go lucky,
naivety and all that stuff. And then, I mean, that's what makes that scene so good with the when she's actually auditioning. Is we see it once, completely over the top, very much in line with it, and then it becomes super serious and sexual
and like very well acted, very acting, you know, like reserved, held back, you know, not the over the top stuff she was doing with the Rita character.
Right.
And I love the dead reading of, like, just thinking about having rehearsed the scene before and just like being like, before what? And like you're trying to like emote with the person you're rehearsing and they're giving you nothing to bounce off of.
Right. Well, that's one of my, I do love that scene where the director tries to give his direction. It's just like, cool, you literally just said nothing.
You said don't get real until it becomes real. And everyone just kind of goes, okay! Yeah. I'm also sure there have been many actors who have looked at David Lynch like, what the fuck did you just say? Because I don't understand what you just told me to do.
Yeah. I don't know. It does take a level of dedication. I do find it so weird that diner scene, I know it's not, the movie's not supposed to be horror, even though there are horror elements specifically near the end.
Yeah.
But people list that scene where he describes it, walks in the back, and the person comes out and then goes back in as like one of the most terrifying things to them. And I'm like,
I can think of 10 more things more frightening in David Lynch's movies.
Right, but for some reason that affects people, and I just don't understand it because the first time I tried watching this before, don't remember any of the Rita stuff early on, though it is a good hook. But seeing that scene with the diner, and that just kind of went, okay, this movie's just not going to be for me because that just literally does nothing for me. Like, I can almost understand it whenever, like, he looks back that first time and his friend looks worried, but then the second time he looks back, and okay, so we're, you know.
I think the actor's performance is what probably a lot of people are logging into.
Well, it's also the lack of sound, and when it comes out, he starts, screaming, dies from fright, apparently, and but that's all muted out. But you don't get that. It's just no sound before, where he's looking at stuff that he didn't even describe in the dream. That I think a lot of people are trying to, like, I remember that feeling in a dream. Like, if you had those weird dreams, this perfectly fits it. And I'm like, yeah, it's just if a little bit more, if we had heard more of that dull hum with the soundscape while he was doing that, it's more of a style, like the vroom sound that happens is probably the thing that is supposed to be scary, or throw you off or whatever, but just did nothing for me.
For me, that's like one of the. It's an important scene when it's recontextualized.
Yeah.
It's important when you look at it in relationship to the ending imagery, but in the context of the film, until you get to the last 40 minutes, it's kind of an unnecessary scene.
Right. Well, and even then, it brings back a lot of Eraserhead imagery. The person behind the diner is essentially the gear man that's pulling all the cranks in Eraserhead. Like, it's the same sort of imagery there. Same thing with the theater. Looks just like the stage from Eraserhead.
Yeah, actually,
there's differences,
yeah,
but it's similarly shot, similar setup, one single point focus,
Yeah.
Like, it is, as soon as I saw that, especially near the end with the woman sitting in the back, Silencio, I was like, that's totally like him evoking Eraserhead right there.
Well, I think that that's the thing that's weird about Lynch is the fact that, like, he has recurring motifs to the point that sometimes it seems like he's referencing his own films.
Right.
But I think it's literally just because he's not like a super intellectual filmmaker. Like
Yeah, I mean, he goes more off of instinct, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's very into instinct. He's very into just like getting an idea, not questioning it, just following the idea to its extent that either goes somewhere or it doesn't. And
so, who do you think the woman is at the end?
I don't know. I haven't figured her out yet.
Is it Camilla? Is it Diane? It kind of feels like Diane. Like an older version of her replaying all of these memories.
I don't know. I'd have to really think on that one. That's the one thing that I think I've forgotten because I focused on other elements. I forget that final shot.
And that
because when it went back to the theater, I was like, I don't remember that transition. I remember their faces over Los Angeles. I remember the kind of like, because one, it evokes that opening montage with the jitterbug dancers and the fade in.
Which is good because she mentions that she won a jitterbug contest, which is the reason she's in LA, which is not in the first half of it.
Yeah.
The first 2/3.
And but it also kind of evokes the kind of heavenly, like they're both dead now they can be together kind of thing.
Right.
The dark, like a really dark happy ending kind of thing. But then when it transitions to back to the Club Silencio, which says Silencio, I've watched this movie this year, and I'd forgotten that. Apparently.
Well, she feels almost like a Mrs. Havisham sort of character.
Havisham.
Great Expectations.
I've never.
So just kind of an older widow who's been part of it all, looking back on her great lost love and all that. If I'm remembering right, Mrs. Havisham is the not benefactor, but the person who's raising up the main character from Great Expectations. Anyway, she's part of Great Expectations, and she's just kind of that older, washed-up person that's stuck in the past.
If you're right with the allusion to Eraserhead, it could be a reference to the Lady in the Radiator,
right?
Or knowing Lynch, also the glitteriness, it could be a reference to the Good Witch in Wizard of Oz of like everything kind of returning to normal, of like, you know.
Right. So I don't know.
That's what's interesting is like ever since I found out, like I knew Wizard of Oz was one of his favorite films, but after watching more of like his favorite films and seeing different elements, some of the elements of Jacques Tati with the kind of like silent humor and the kind of off-kilter humor, and I see way more of that in his work, but like I see more of that influence with the way the smoke billows at the end, the way the curtain looks, the way sometimes colors are like very powerful and glittery and in your face. You know, it's like there's all these elements of kind of this Wizard of Oz element too, which recurs when you finally see Wild at Heart. You'll see some of that too.
So I guess my couple questions are, well, one, the woman in the theater, I did notice her right away whenever they were in the theaters, whatever, Silencio, whatever it's called, the Illusion Theater, with sitting up above them, like, okay, like, not a direct reference character until the very end. Yeah. So obviously important to the story, but in what context?
Yeah, this is all the recording.
Yeah, because she's looking down on a past aspect of herself. My other question is, why does Betty and Rita find the corpse of Diane, who is herself?
I think that's reality starting to... You know how sometimes in dreams you'll be something really weird will happen, and then all of a sudden something very like from your day to day just creeps into like a customer at the store walks by you and you're like, I think it's her starting to realize what she did in the dream. Now, in the context of like,
because it's not Betty on the.
No.
But I couldn't tell if it was Camilla or not.
I think it's not. It's neither of them in the dream because the quartz is so rotted you couldn't even directly tell.
Yeah.
But clearly the body shot from the far is Naomi Watts because they use the exact same shot with her. It looks identical when she wakes up as Diane later.
Right. So yeah, I don't know on that one.
Now, what do you think of the fact that, like, of all of David Lynch's movies, this is the movie right now that among critics, as far as 21st century film, this is widely regarded as as either the number one or almost the number one best movie since the Millennium Change.
I mean, the biggest thing that it has going for it is that until the last 40 minutes, it is comprehensible. Like, it's a good story. It has great acting. They build on it. As I said while watching it, I was completely shocked that it stayed sober for so long. Because, like, I kept waiting for it to. I knew about the blue box. I knew about certain aspects of it, but
it's a very linear
yeah
story progression
with side stories that mirror what's going on or tell a different aspect of it before we get to that aspect. So I can understand it. I still prefer Blue Velvet.
I mean, I think Blue Velvet's one of my favorite films of all time. So
yeah, I don't know. Blue Velvet.
It's a lot darker than this.
It is, and Blue Velvet had a lot more incidental, comedy going on,
and a lot more of the dark underbelly is more exposed from the get-go.
Yeah, but I mean, one of my favorite lines in that is the whole King of Beers line. Oh, you want a bone? No, I'll have a. What was it? King of Beers. Like, I just love how deadpan it is, how, like, defeated as well. It's like, oh, I should.
Heineken, fuck that shit.
So, I don't know. It's.
Well, and even the fact that it becomes a story beat because he misses her honking horn because he's peeing, and he just goes Heineken while he's peeing. Like,
yeah.
And so he gets caught that first time in the apartment.
But the weirdness is also interwoven throughout. It's a narrative that you can follow, but the weirdness is interwoven throughout, as opposed to, hey, you can take the first almost 2 hours and just have a film there. It's a weird film, and it doesn't really get the closure you need.
Yeah, because I almost think that, knowing Lynch, that the last shot of the TV movie was her running out and it becoming all double exposure.
Right.
Like, because that seems like to be continued, like something you would freeze frame on and to be continued kind of moment.
Right.
In it. And I think the most fascinating aspect to this movie, as I've seen it more and more, is just how many point of view shots there are.
Okay.
There's way more point of view storytelling. Like, you get a shot of the character, you get a reverse angle that is what they are looking at.
Right.
And if they're hurt, you see the camera just kind of move and kind of gets drunk, you know. You get more of a perspective of, like, from a person's point of, like, real point of view in the story, which is not something that I think is very there's moments of it in David Lynch's films, but I think this is the most like where you're put in the headspace of all of these different characters, but by seeing the world from their eyes as the camera. I almost want to explore that. I think that there's something in that as an essay or something, maybe to like explore,
Right.
like the use of like the fact that the point of view shots are direct, like they're not. It's not to the side, or it's not to. It's like, no, this is what this character is looking as they walk down the stairs, or this is what the character's seeing as they survey the place that they enter.
Right.
You know, there's more of that than there is of the just like shot and then establishing shot, then the character walks through. You know, you see more from, which maybe is why the movie is so effective, like as a narrative, that when it kind of shifts to the more like intercut, interwoven, time isn't really linear, that last
Right.
section. Because
Or at the very beginning, she's already killed Camilla.
yeah, and then you go
And
through.
she sees. Well, I'm saying whenever you go through the box,
Yeah.
she's killed Camilla, and then there's the jumping to an alternate version of herself at a different time. Then the stuff from the first timeline starts coming into that, and even he references that she got the cool guy. So his ex-wife got Jean.
Yeah.
Good old Jean.
You got Gene from the Gene Pool. Cheap joke, right?
Yeah.
Pool guy named Gene. Wow. And it's played by Billy Ray Cyrus.
That was the best part, honestly.
So,
And just how deadpan he was, I'm pretty sure he's upset.
I'm pretty sure you should just leave.
Yeah, and, hey, I don't care what she's done.
You don't do that to a woman or something.
Yeah.
Like it,
Well, and I like, as I said, I like he's upset. Like,
yeah.
her yelling and everything.
He's upset.
I mean,
Very clearly upset. But as far as the David Lynch movies you've seen, clearly you still put Blue Velvet above this.
and Dune, I love it too. Like, I think Dune's still on my favorite.
Which is so weird because it's such a hard, it is not aged well at all.
It's there's certain effects that don't age well, but I just love how insane it is. The space worms, all it's
all the fetish stuff with the Harkonnen.
Yeah, it's such a different view of sci-fi that you don't get anywhere else, and it doesn't have Lynch's weird, it's straightforward, and that's the thing. I like that one. Blue Velvet, this Inland Empire all the way at the bottom, thrown in the fire, because I hate that so much.
But as far as compared to Eraserhead.
Oh yeah, Eraserhead. I understand. Thanks to Nick's fears, I have more understanding of Eraserhead, but I'd still probably put Eraserhead under these because it's so annoying. The baby sound, the weird stretches of stuff, it's watchable. At least I can watch it. There's nothing there that makes me go, oh god, I gotta get off of this. But
I think one thing that works in its favor too is the fact that it's not very long.
yeah, but it lingers on a lot of stuff, which
That doesn't bother me at all.
for me, it just depends on the movie. Blade Runner for me, the first until you got into the desert felt fine to me, and then I realized how slow he was. Actually, technically, it was him going to find the horse, actually slowly walking to get to the place, then that's weird sidestep walk that he does. That's whenever I started to go, oh god, this is going to happen everywhere. And so it just depends on the movie. There's other movies that I'm just like, oh, okay.
I think with Eraserhead, it's so much the atmosphere.
Right.
And if you haven't seen any of the Jacques Tati movies, have you? Yeah. I think you will have a deeper appreciation for a lot of the weird silent stuff in David Lynch's movies after you've seen like Mr. Hula's Holiday, because it's like it's a slapstick comedy, but it's almost entirely no dialogue.
Right.
Like there's dialogue, but it's kind of incidental to the story.
Right.
It's just there are little bits of dialogue between characters, but mostly like most of the storytelling comes from the physical humor and the physical way that the things are moved or interchanged and the kind of visual puns that come out of that stuff.
Right.
Like it was a revelation when I watched that movie. I was like, I understand Lynch's movies even more, knowing that this is like, knowing that The Wizard of Oz is a huge influence, knowing that Sunset Boulevard is a huge influence, knowing that just Hitchcock in general, like there's shot types and recurring images and motifs that show up in Lynch's work that are directly from Hitchcock, knowing he loves Francis Bacon paintings, knowing that, there's all of these visual motif and references that like are outside of the movie, but when you know they've influenced him as a director, like that last shot of Lost Highway when he's just like spinning his head around and it's all these multiple exposures, it's totally a Francis Bacon painting. It's totally an homage to Francis Bacon.
Which Lost Highway is the other one I've seen on there. I'd probably put Mulholland Drive over Lost Highway, but I need to rewatch Lost Highway because it's been a while.
It's been a while.
But yeah, I haven't got that Pavlovian response, but I know Kevin Smith does it every single time. I have plenty of other Pavlovian like triggers that should fuck my life. But no, I'm always for Bill Pullman. Like,
yeah. Also, it's such a. That's right after Independence Day.
Yeah.
He just did Independence Day. It was the biggest movie ever. I think there's maybe like a comedy that came out, but then it's Lost Highway.
Well,
Like, you were the president of the United States in a giant blockbuster.
Right.
You're the weirdo sex murdering husband in another movie. What?
Well, yeah, and then it was early '90s or late '80s, but there's a movie. I think it's called Brain Dead, something like that. But it is so fucking weird. It's not the Peter Jackson one, which is Dead Alive, I believe. That's his really over-the-top zombie flick where a monkey bites his mother, which turns her into a zombie, which turns everybody into a zombie. It's very well known because at one point he uses a lawnmower.
Oh yes, okay. There's lots of guts
and slipping.
I've seen that clip
right
float around.
So Brain Dead is this really weird feeling. It almost feels like an Outer Limits episode, but like extended to like an hour and a half movie, where they're neuroscientists, but he gets stuck in this weird dream sourcescape. Spoilers on the ending, but it doesn't really matter because it's such a weird movie, it's worth watching, is that at the very end he ends up a brain in a jar, but he has a voiceover where it's just like, hey, what's going on? Hey, oh, well, this will be interesting. You find out that it's a Jacob's Ladder scenario, kind of like this, this was totally a Jacob's Ladder scenario.
I don't know about a Jacob's Ladder.
I mean, obviously Diane was dead the whole time, and was just stuck in multiple realities.
I mean, I'm pretty sure it's much clearer. It's not so occurrence on Owl Creek Bridge like Jacob's Ladder is. Because, I mean, that's the whole point of Jacob's Ladder is the fact that literally, it's not just a recontextualization, it's everything literally happened in that span of time.
Right.
Where this is more of like, her almost reimagining her life.
Right.
As the TV movie of the week where she comes to LA, she gets the part, she finds love, she's also has almost a meet cute with the director, and they get involved in a mystery and all this stuff. And then when she wakes back up, no, all the horrible things I just did are real.
Right.
And it's just such a such a different thing than the Jacob's Ladder kind of scenario of getting shot and then having this alternate life that you live.
I mean, the jacket kind of falls. The jacket gets even weirder with that because the jacket. Have you seen that?
I haven't seen. You've told me about it.
Yeah, it's worth watching because it's really interesting.
Because it's kind of a time travel movie too.
Well, it's Jacob's Ladder meets time travel. I think it literally is supposed to be that he died in Vietnam or died in the Gulf War, but then he has this whole thing where he wakes up. He's walking in the winter of like 1992 or 1994, something like that. He's walking. This hitchhiker picks him up. They get pulled over, and the hitchhiker, or the guy who was driving the car, kills the cop, knocks him out, and then frames him for the murder, so he gets put in a mental institution. And what happens is that the doctor, played by Chris Christopherson, is injecting him with basically hallucinogenics, putting him in a straitjacket and throwing him in a morgue drawer, to which he then travels to the future of 2004, finds out he's going to die in 3 days, and keeps jumping forward. Like, there's also this little girl in the thing that he helps with the drunk mother. When he jumps into the future, it's played by Keira Knightley, and so he's manipulating the past by going to see her, which ends up actually killing him, which then moves him into the future at the very end, where he, as he's dying, moves himself into the future. So, and then it ends with a fade to white. So you're still like, okay, he could have died and this was all Jacob's Ladder. Or he did end up in the mental institution and was moving himself forward, but it was weird because all the stuff he was doing, learning in the future, helped affect the past, which affected the people in the future he was going to.
Yeah.
Like, it gets really interesting. Like, all the information he gets is from the doctors. So there's literally one situation where, like, he goes into the future and he meets the doctor, and like the doctor's like, "No, you said stuff to me that you told me the names of the patients." He's like, "Oh, what patients were those?" And the doctor tells him the patients, and then he starts laughing at him and goes, "Dude, you're haunting yourself, old man.
Yeah.
Like, you're literally giving me the names of the people and then he goes into the past and tells them the names of the patients, which then haunts him for the future so that he can tell them in the past." It's really good. Like, as a time travel thing, it's really good.
Well, and also that's the causal.
Yes, which I love, obviously. So, yeah, I really don't have anything left on that for my first viewing, at least.
Yeah, it's definitely much. It's one of those movies that lives up to its hype, though.
Yeah, I mean,
it's not like you're like, people are like, this is a good movie, this is crazy, it's weird, it's like unusual, and then you like watch it and you're like, okay, yeah, that was kind of weird, that was kind of unusual, and that was kind of interesting. It doesn't fail.
It doesn't. I think my thing with David Lynch just in general is that when he goes full out, he goes full out, but it almost feels at times that those are segmented pieces. Like, he tries to be normal in areas, still has his weird, retro America, surreal America sort of thing going on. But that's almost why I like Cronenberg more, is because while Cronenberg is weird, the entire world is weird.
Well, yeah. I think less so with his later movies.
Oh, yeah. I'm talking early Cronenberg.
Well, I don't know. Cosmopolis, the whole world is fucking weird.
It is, but that's not a good movie.
Oh, I still will say, I'm not saying it's a great movie. Yeah. I'm saying it's a good movie.
It's definitely interesting. I mean, I even love History of Violence, even though near the ending of that, there's a really weird scene where it's almost like the brother is testing the brother. I've had arguments about this.
I still haven't seen History of Violence.
Okay, so just real quick, it's an interesting scene because once characters meet up, one of them is telling stories about the other one, but he's doing it in kind of a, hey, you remember this? That's, and then the character says, no, it was this, and it was this, and it was this, but they never play it as the suspenseful, is he or isn't he? Is he telling the truth? It's just play off like playful banter between brothers.
Yeah, but that's also not Cronenberg's style.
Right.
He doesn't do the fake suspense stuff.
Yeah, I'm just saying that if you look at it objectively, that's what that scene was. But they don't play like that. It's something that you have to step back. It's like Hansel and Gretel. When you read Hansel and Gretel, everything seems fine. Like, nothing stands out as particularly horrific. We know the story, but when you read the actual one, there's just little details that if you stop and think about it, it expands the whole world. Like, hey, he's picking up the skeletal remains of another boy that the witch has eaten, and having the witch feel it, to say, oh, you're just skin and bones. Like, here, let me give you more food so he can survive, and then she gets fed up because he's thin the whole time. You're like, okay, it just says, oh yeah, he handed her the finger of a boy. Oh, so here's all this context behind that expands that. So, but that's why I prefer Cronenberg to Lynch, is that it feels like the world is built around that weirdness, especially in early Cronenberg. Whereas Lynch, it feels like you step from from relatively normal but still heightened reality into batshit insane.
Well, I think that's a common theme of Lynch's movies, is to enter another world.
Right.
Like even visually with like Blue Velvet, you have from the moment he finds the ear, you actually get a shot that goes into the ear.
Right.
So you transport it into another world. Like in this one, you have her you have the jitterbug, and then you have the person stumbling into the bedroom, and then going and the camera falls completely into the pillow, and then falls completely into the box,
which then falls and disappears.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just what I'm saying. That's why I don't like Lynch.
But it's like where Cronenberg, you're not getting transported. You're already there.
Right.
You don't have there's no additional portal.
Right.
Where in almost all of Lynch's movies, there is a second portal. There's another, like, even with Eraserhead, when he enters the radiator at the end, you have all of these.
And that's a motif of his.
Yeah, it's just very much, it's, and Kubrick doesn't do that either. Kubrick very much, you're in the world from day one.
Dune, you're in the world.
There's still portals in it, though.
Yeah, but it is more of a fully formed world than.
Yeah, but it's also the only true adaptation that he did.
Right.
Because Elephant Man was more a hired gun situation.
Right.
Elephant Man.
And I haven't finished that one, but I liked it.
Elephant Man's really good too.
Yeah, but I just haven't finished it.
John Hurt's performance as John Merrick is so incredible.
Right.
But it's also the only David Lynch movie that really isn't a David Lynch movie, because the production was kind of already formed. They needed a director. Mel Brooks hired him on the basis of Eraserhead.
Right.
And they didn't. There isn't the worlds of. It's the most least transformed. Like almost all those movies take place in modern day, or some sort of weird dystopian kind of modern day of the time. But that one actually takes place in the past.
Right.
Completely. And that is something that I think is as much nostalgia is in his films. They really don't take place directly in the past. They take place kind of in whatever the now, a version of now is, other than Dune. I guess is the only other one in that way.
Right.
But I still wish that there was a surviving version of the 4.5-hour cut of that movie.
Yeah, well.
I mean, it wouldn't have some of the effects and stuff.
Of course.
But I wish that there was a surviving cut of it, just so we could actually see what the David Lynch version of Dune was. Because that was... Because what we got was the 2-hour condensed overlap dialogue shoving stuff together. And
Well, I
condensing as
know
much
when my
material as
parents went and
possible.
saw the film in theaters, they actually handed out cheat sheets that had double-sided, that had characters, terms,
Yeah.
everything on it, so you could understand the movie.
Which is so great. I can't even imagine someone doing that like now. It's kind of like Paul Scheer making fun of Ultraviolet with, okay, you know when most of the time I'm like, I don't need the origin story, I don't need the... No, I really need the origin story because I don't understand what's going on at all.
No, and at least with that, they did hit on the fact that it was taken away from the director. It was supposed to be rated R, be 40 minutes longer.
Yeah.
And they ended up releasing a director's cut.
That's only 10 minutes longer.
Right. So it was supposed to be R. All that stuff that's in the prologue of Ultraviolet is supposed to be, was actually filmed and was a 20-minute segment that actually put you in the world and built you up. And they're like, no, it needs to be shorter, it needs to be faster, it needs to be dumber. And I was like, no. So, and obviously Kurt Wimmer has never recovered. Allowed to direct anything since. So,
though I wouldn't be surprised if he finally get, because Christopher McQuarrie went under that too
for a bit, yeah. And then
then he made Valkyrie, and boom, Kurt Wimmer just needs to find that actor or actress.
Didn't Bryan Singer do Valkyrie?
But Christopher McQuarrie meant Tom Cruise.
Right, and then that led to what's the name of that series?
Jack Reacher.
Jack Reacher. So he did Jack Reacher, which then got a Mission Impossible.
Yeah. And Jack Reacher was a smaller budget movie,
but it was successful.
And it had a big star.
Because Way of the Gun killed his career for a while.
Yeah. Well, yeah, a couple things. But the thing is, he was writing scripts or script doctoring. He just wasn't allowed to direct.
Right.
Which is one of those weird things. Of course, because Christopher McQuarrie wrote Usual Suspects, right?
Yeah, and that's what got him Way of the Gun, which then killed him.
Which Way of the Gun? Boom. Which Way of the Gun is? We've talked about it enough, probably on our.
Yeah, well, Way of the Gun. The one thing I would say about that is the opening is amazing and the end is amazing. The middle is slow as shit. There's some cool sequences, but especially the car, like them moving the cars with their feet, with the doors open to do the firefight, just drags on a little bit too long. That it's one of those you do have to pay a lot of attention to pick up what's going, the actual story. If you drift at all, you lose it. It's like, okay.
So back to Mulholland Drive, since we've tangented around because we were talking about lots of other stuff. But overall, if you were forced to give it a quote-unquote star rating, what would you?
Probably 7 stars, something like that.
Out of 10?
Yeah, something like that, where it's good, but it doesn't blow me away, sort of thing. It's something I'd watch again. I just don't know if I'd get sucked in enough to do the deep study. I mean,
I think that's the other thing, is like I have such a love of Lynch's films that I could just go.
Right. Now, if we were talking about Cronenberg and Nate Lunch or something, I would be, oh my god, like...
Yeah, and I'm totally with you on something like that too.
So it's not a bad way of going, it's just, it's something I'll rewatch. Obviously, I own the Criterion 4K restoration of it, so it's something I'll watch again, but... Yeah. Some of his other stuff I would have been like, oh, why did I do this? But with this, at least it does have a cohesive story at the beginning. Even though the last 40 minutes is jumbled, it is cohesive. You can string it together. You can figure it out. You see characters returning that were only in a scene previously.
Yeah, and you see images being recontextualized from the first chunk of the movie. So it's like, in a way, it's a different way of doing the embed and payoff kind of thing.
Yeah,
setups and payoffs.
Yeah, it's like, I would say it's like taffy or something like that. It pulls it apart and then you kind of put it back together and jumble it. So I'm not sure about the technique itself, but yeah, I mean, I'd recommend watching it.
Okay. So Thumbs up.